Hi, hello, and welcome back to my channel, Alex in Wonderland. Thank you for tuning in today. We're talking about the Maybe series, again, September 2022 edition. So if you're new here, the Maybe series is a video that I compile at the end of the month to talk about all the books I'm gonna maybe read in the upcoming month. So basically at the end of the month, I just make a running list of all the books that are interesting to me at the time, and then I pick from that list for what to read that month. So in this series, in these maybe videos, I basically just put the picture here and I tell you why I added it to the list and maybe a little bit about the book. I don't get into the synopsises. I don't get into anything like that. It's basically just like a little list of all the books that I'm thinking about reading. I usually read like 3 or 4 books a month, and I just kind of pick from this list. So yeah, sometimes the lists are a little funny and weird, and sometimes they're very like niche focused. So yeah, let's get into it. I'm not gonna say this right, but we're gonna give it a go. The first book is A Girl Like That by Tanaz, Bhathena? Tanaz, Bhathena? Bhathena? I don't know. I'm sorry if you're watching this. So this book is set in Saudi Arabia, I think, and it just really caught my eye because I'm always, diversifying my bookshelf, and I really just wanted to branch out of my usual category, which is mostly like BIPOC, and really kind of get into stories from other backgrounds and other countries. And I really liked this cover for whatever reason, and I was like, you know what, yeah, let's add it to the list. And it actually sounds really, really interesting. I think it's a YA novel if I remember correctly, and by reading the description just briefly, I feel like it might be an LGBTQIA book, but I'm not positive. But yeah, this one sounded like super interesting to me, so on the list it went. This is Jupiter, my cat. He's hiding from the dog, so he probably won't sit there long. The next book on my list is Moon of the Crusted Snow by Waubgeshig Rice. Again, probably did not say that right. This is by an indigenous author, and he is from First Nations, which is in Canada. I'm not remembering right off the top of my head which tribe he's from, but this book is set in Anishinaabe territory, and everyone in the rating section was calling it like post-apocalyptic light, and it sounded really interesting to me. Obviously from the cover it looks like a Snowden type situation, and they're just kind of trapped in their houses and things like that. And in the description it said that they were going to be like turning back towards older ways to kind of like survive. Anyway, it sounded super interesting to me. Again, diversification is always important. I absolutely love indigenous books, and this one really caught my eye. So the next book on the maybes list is Tonight the Streets Are Ours by Leila Sales. Finally a name I think I said right. This book has been on my list for a very long time, and I don't know. I like the cover. I think that's why it's on my list, is the cover. It's great. If I'm remembering correctly, it's something like our main character meets someone online, and then she like goes out to find them, and then has like a wild night in New York City. It sounds like I'm gonna hate it. Because when I read books like this, especially like, I'm pretty sure it's a YA book, I don't know if it's just because I'm older now, or if it's because I'm a mom now, or if it's like all of those things, but when I'm reading books like this where they just kind of like take off and they're like, oh, it was a wild night in the city, and I'm like, by yourself at 17 with a stranger? That's just serious. You just asking yourself to get kidnapped. Like, that's all I'm thinking the whole time when I'm reading books like that. Like, you're just asking to get kidnapped, you're asking to get trafficked, you're asking to end up in the morgue. So I don't I don't know if I'll actually read it, because that's when I read the description, that's all that I was thinking. But it's been on my list forever, and I feel like, you know, I really just need to give it a go because it's been on my list forever, but we'll see. This book made an appearance on one of the other maybes list. It's Last Days by Brian Evenson. I still don't know. It's a cult book. I really want to read it this month. The last month or so, I have really been reading a lot of like just drama fiction, literary fiction. Some of it's been like romance fiction. I read a nonfiction book last month. We'll talk about that next week. But you know what? I was just sitting here thinking, it was like, it has been a minute since I read something like really horrifying, like really like questionable, like really just hard literature. Do you know what I mean? It has been a moment, and I was like, you know what? This book's probably not going to be roses. It's probably going to be pretty horrifying. So it went on the list, and that's when the list kind of took a turn from nice and uplifting to just darkness, I guess. Darkness, like my soul. So in keeping with that theme, the next book on the list is The Girl Beneath the Sea by Andrew Mayne. This book sounded interesting because I found it on a list of books about deep sea diving. I don't know why I have a list like that, but I do. But lately I have been, it's probably because the last book I read, which I will talk about next week in my, monthly wrap up. But the last book I read was about like the ocean and stuff like that. And lately I've just been thinking how much like the deep open water like completely terrifies me. Like, we don't know what's down there. Do you know how like small we are in like the vastness of the ocean and the depths of the water? Horrifying. Like, I could sit here and think about it for hours and be horrified. And like, I watched this video the other day that is like, oh, did you know like sperm whales, or just whales in general, use those clicking sounds to communicate? Yeah. And you know what else the video said? That if you're close enough to that whale when they're making those clicking sounds, it will literally vibrate your organs and pulverize your inside of your body. Like, what? That's horrifying. That's horrifying. Like, I love whales as much as the next person. Okay, beautiful, intelligent creatures, giants of the sea, whatever. That's horrifying. I don't care who you are. If you're close enough to that whale when it's making those sounds, it will literally, like, turn you to mush. And when we say like you have to be close enough to it, I'm not like saying you gotta touch it. I mean, you have to be like within a mile within a mile of it. You wouldn't even see it. Well, maybe you would, because they're really big. Anyway, did you see the spiral happening in my brain just now thinking about the deep ocean? Okay, so that's why I was like, I saw this list and I was like, oh yeah, I want to read about that because I'm not, terrified enough of open water. Let's just add it up. This book is apparently about, it's a fiction book, so it's not nonfiction, so whew, probably won't scare me that much. Apparently she's from a family of divers and stuff, but they're actually like pirates. And they like steal artifacts and stuff from people, and they're smugglers, so they have like tainted the family name. So she gets out of that, and then she, I don't know, kind of tries to like live a decent life, and then she gets mixed up with a underwater death of some sort. Anyway, it sounded really interesting, and it sounded like close enough to that kind of category where it wasn't really gonna like terrify me, but it sounded interesting. And then we just continued with the darkness theme, and we ended up with It Ends With Her by Brianna Labuskes. Don't know. And this one is about a serial killer. It's a standalone book, which was like a big plus for me, because I have a serial killer thriller series that I read regularly, but I was really disappointed with the last book that I read in that series, and so I didn't really know if I wanted to go back to it just yet. And then I saw this as a standalone book, and I said, okay, that sounds pretty good. The main character detective is a woman, so we love that. Yeah, it sounded like really up my alley with like death and yeah. That's all I have on my list. Of course, there's always a spot every month for my book club book, which also looks like it's going to end up being a thriller that made my soul very happy. I am getting ready for my October reads already. I'm so excited. If you guys don't know, every October I only read horror books. And it makes me so happy. I save all my horror books for October. Sometimes I'm able to read a lot, sometimes I'm only reading a little, but I save them all for October. So if you have a favorite horror book, please drop it down in the comments. I want recommendations. I'm already preparing my list. Please do not recommend to me Stephen King. And it's not that I don't like Stephen King. I mean, I don't have the time to read a 600-page book, basically. And you know, we all know, if you've read King, you know he does not read short, easily digestible books. They're long, they're dense, they're very intense. I just really don't have time in my schedule for something that big, unless that's the only thing I'm gonna read in October. And I really don't want to only read one book. Like, I don't want to pour all my time into Stephen King, basically. So if you're a huge Stephen King fan and I've offended you, sorry, not sorry. No, I bet if you told Stephen King, like, hey, could you write a couple of short stories, he'd write you a 300-page book. Like, he's brilliant. Brilliant. The writing is amazing. When I do read King books, I'm always just blown away. He breaks every writing rule ever made, and it's still a masterpiece. Like, there's a reason he is who he is. Do you know what I mean? There's a reason that he has this huge cult following, because he's a master writer. Okay, so it has nothing to do with whether I like his writing or not. It's that I don't have the mental capacity to pour into that much of a book at the moment. So yeah, other than that, drop your comments down below. Have you read anything that I talked about in the Maybe series today? If you have, let me know. Let me know if it was worth it, if you loved it or you hated it. Before you go, make sure you hit all the buttons down below so then you know when I'm posting. I post every week. Next week we're going to talk about my August wrap up. I'm super excited to tell you about the books I read in August. And yeah, other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.